Question 1. According to California law, if stopped by a peace officer while lawfully carrying a concealed firearm under a permit, what is the recommended first action regarding the firearm? A. Immediately reach for the firearm and hand it to the officer. B. Remain silent about the firearm unless directly asked. C. Inform the officer that you are carrying a concealed firearm and keep your hands visible. D. Wait for the officer to complete their questioning before mentioning the firearm. Answer: C. Inform the officer that you are carrying a concealed firearm and keep your hands visible. Explanation: if a peace officer stops you while you are carrying a concealed firearm with a valid permit, your primary responsibility is safety and transparency. You should calmly and clearly inform the officer that you are a CCW permit holder and that you are currently carrying a firearm, while keeping your hands in plain sight where the officer can see them. This prevents misunderstandings and ensures the officer's safety as well as your own by making them aware of the situation immediately. Being upfront about carrying while following the officer's instructions helps ensure a smooth and safe interaction. Question 2. Which of the following locations is generally prohibited for carrying a concealed firearm, even with a valid California CCW permit? A. A public park with a playground. B. A private business that serves alcohol, but not in the bar area. C. The immediate grounds of a K-12 public school. D. A polling place on election day. Answer: C. The immediate grounds of a K-12 public school. Explanation: California law specifically designates certain locations as gun-free zones, where carrying firearms, even with a concealed carry permit, is prohibited. The immediate grounds of a public or private K-12 school is one such location to ensure the safety of children. While other locations might have restrictions or require careful consideration, schools are a clear and strict prohibition under state law for permit holders. Always check the law for specific prohibited locations before you carry. Question 3. How long is a standard California concealed carry weapon, CCW, permit typically valid for non-peace officers or judges? A. 1 year. B. 2 years. C. 3 years. D. 5 years. Answer: B. 2 years. Explanation: for the general public in California, a standard concealed carry weapon permit is valid for a period of 2 years from the date of issue. There are specific exceptions for individuals like reserve peace officers or judges, whose permits may be valid for 4 years, but the typical duration for most permit holders is 2 years. Remembering this timeframe is crucial because carrying with an expired permit is illegal. Question 4. If you temporarily disarm and store your handgun in your vehicle while having a valid CCW permit, how must the handgun be stored according to California guidelines, if you are not immediately next to the vehicle? A. It must be locked in the trunk or a locked container. B. It can be left loaded anywhere visible within the vehicle. C. It must be unloaded but can be placed under a seat. D. It can be left loaded on the front seat as long as the doors are locked. Answer: A. It must be locked in the trunk or a locked container. Explanation: even with a CCW permit, if you leave your handgun unattended in your vehicle, such as when you go into a prohibited location, it must be stored securely to prevent theft and unauthorized access. This requires placing the handgun in a locked container or, if the vehicle has a trunk, locking it within the trunk. This is different from transporting a handgun without a CCW, which has stricter requirements, but securing an unattended firearm is always paramount. Question 5. What is the legal standard used in California to evaluate whether the use of deadly force in self-defense was justified? A. Any force the defender felt was necessary at the moment. B. The force necessary to cause serious injury or death. C. Force that a reasonable person in the same situation would believe was necessary to prevent imminent danger of death or great bodily injury. D. Force proportional to the aggressor's initial action. Answer: C. Force that a reasonable person in the same situation would believe was necessary to prevent imminent danger of death or great bodily injury. Explanation: California law applies the reasonable person standard when evaluating the use of deadly force in self-defense. This means the force used must be what a hypothetical reasonable individual, facing the same circumstances, would honestly and reasonably believe was necessary to prevent imminent death or significant bodily harm to themselves or others. Simply feeling threatened isn't enough, the threat must be perceived as serious by an objective standard, and the force used must match that level of threat. Question 6. Which of the following statements regarding carrying a concealed firearm while consuming alcohol is true in California? A. It is permissible to carry concealed as long as you are not legally intoxicated. B. Carrying concealed is prohibited if you are consuming any alcoholic beverage or are under the influence. C. You can carry concealed in a restaurant bar area while consuming alcohol if you have a permit. D. Carrying while consuming alcohol is only prohibited if you are also displaying the firearm. Answer: B. Carrying concealed is prohibited if you are consuming any alcoholic beverage or are under the influence. Explanation: California law strictly prohibits carrying a concealed firearm while consuming any alcoholic beverage or while under the influence of alcohol or any drug. This is a critical safety regulation because alcohol and firearms are a dangerous combination that impairs judgment and reaction time. Even a small amount of alcohol can lead to serious legal consequences if you are carrying a firearm. Question 7. If you have a California CCW permit, are you allowed to carry a handgun that is not listed on your permit but which you legally own? A. Yes, as long as you own it and it's registered in California. B. Yes, provided it meets the state's safety roster requirements. C. No, you are only permitted to carry handguns specifically listed on your current CCW permit. D. Yes, but only if you notify the issuing agency within 10 days. Answer: C. No, you are only permitted to carry handguns specifically listed on your current CCW permit. Explanation: A California concealed carry weapon permit specifically authorizes the permit holder to carry only the handguns that are listed on the permit itself. This is because the permit process includes verifying the ownership and eligibility of those specific firearms for concealed carry. Attempting to carry a firearm you own but which is not listed on your permit is a violation of your permit conditions and state law. Question 8. What must a California CCW permit holder do if they change their place of residence within the state? A. No action is required as long as the permit remains valid. B. Notify the issuing agency within 10 days of the move. C. Only notify the issuing agency if the new residence is in a different county. D. Apply for a new permit immediately upon moving. Answer: B. Notify the issuing agency within 10 days of the move. Explanation: California law requires that a CCW permit holder notify the issuing agency within 10 days if they change their place of residence. Your CCW permit is tied to your address and the jurisdiction of the issuing authority, typically the county sheriff or city police chief where you reside. Keeping your address current with them is essential for maintaining the validity of your permit and ensuring they can contact you if needed. Question 9. When transporting a handgun in a vehicle without a California CCW permit, the handgun must be: A. Loaded and secured in a locked container in the trunk. B. Unloaded and in a locked container, separate from ammunition. C. Unloaded and accessible under the front seat. D. Loaded and visible on the dashboard. Answer: B. Unloaded and in a locked container, separate from ammunition. Explanation: California law has strict rules for transporting handguns without a CCW permit. The handgun must be unloaded and stored in a locked container, separate from its ammunition, during transport in a vehicle. This regulation aims to prevent quick access to a loaded firearm during transport and is distinct from the rules that apply when carrying with a permit. Always double-check your state's transportation laws before traveling with a firearm. Question 10. Can a California CCW permit holder legally carry a concealed firearm into a public library? A. Yes, public libraries are generally not prohibited locations unless posted otherwise. B. No, all government buildings are prohibited locations. C. Yes, but only if they inform library staff upon entry. D. No, this is considered a sensitive place and is always prohibited. Answer: A. Yes, public libraries are generally not prohibited locations unless posted otherwise. Explanation: while certain government buildings like courthouses and federal facilities are prohibited areas for carrying firearms, a standard public library is generally not automatically off-limits under California law, provided it is not specifically posted as a gun-free zone or located within a larger prohibited area. It is always important to be aware of local ordinances and posted signs, but public libraries themselves are not universally prohibited locations for permit holders. Question 11. If a private business in California has a clearly posted sign prohibiting firearms, and you are carrying a concealed firearm with a valid CCW permit, what is the legal situation if you enter? A. You are legally allowed to ignore the sign as state law permits your carry. B. You are committing a crime simply by entering with the firearm. C. You are not committing a crime by entering, but the owner can ask you to leave, and refusing to leave could be trespassing. D. Your CCW permit is invalid on that property. Answer: C. You are not committing a crime by entering, but the owner can ask you to leave, and refusing to leave could be trespassing. Explanation: in California, a private property owner has the right to prohibit firearms on their premises, even if you have a CCW permit. While entering with a firearm despite a "no guns" sign is not automatically a criminal offense under state law regarding your carry permit, you are violating the owner's policy. If the owner or their agent discovers you are carrying and asks you to leave, you must comply, and failure to do so can result in a trespassing charge. Always respect property owners' wishes. Question 12. What is one of the primary purposes of undergoing training as part of the California CCW permit application or renewal process? A. To learn tactical shooting techniques. B. To understand state and federal laws regarding firearms and use of force. C. To practice competitive shooting skills. D. To receive physical fitness training. Answer: B. To understand state and federal laws regarding firearms and use of force. Explanation: the training requirement for obtaining or renewing a California CCW permit is primarily focused on educating the applicant about firearm safety, relevant state and federal laws, and the legal principles surrounding the use of force, especially deadly force. While some shooting proficiency is required, the core purpose of the classroom portion is legal and safety education, not tactical or competitive shooting. Understanding the law is as crucial as handling your firearm safely. Question 13. Which term describes carrying a firearm in a manner that is not readily observable by the casual passerby? A. Open carry. B. Brandishing. C. Concealed carry. D. Unloaded carry. Answer: C. Concealed carry. Explanation: concealed carry refers to the practice of carrying a firearm in a way that it is intentionally hidden from ordinary observation, usually on one's person under clothing or in a bag. This is the specific type of carry authorized by a concealed carry weapon permit in California. Open carry, in contrast, means the firearm is visible. Question 14. Is a California CCW permit generally recognized as valid in other states? A. Yes, California has full reciprocity agreements with most other states. B. Yes, based on federal interstate commerce laws. C. No, California does not have reciprocity with most other states, and its permit is generally not valid elsewhere. D. Only if the other state also has a may issue permit system. Answer: C. No, California does not have reciprocity with most other states, and its permit is generally not valid elsewhere. Explanation: unlike many other states that have reciprocal agreements recognizing each other's concealed carry permits, California generally does not recognize CCW permits issued by other states, nor are California permits typically recognized in most other states. If you plan to travel outside of California and wish to carry a firearm, you must research and comply with the specific laws of your destination state. Do not assume your California permit is valid elsewhere. Question 15. What is the minimum age to be eligible to apply for a standard California CCW permit? A. 18 years old. B. 21 years old. C. 25 years old. D. 30 years old. Answer: B. 21 years old. Explanation: to be eligible to apply for a standard concealed carry weapon permit in California, an individual must be at least 21 years of age. This age requirement is consistent with federal law regarding the purchase of handguns from licensed dealers and reflects the significant responsibility associated with carrying a concealed firearm in public. Question 16. If your California CCW permit is lost or stolen, what action should you take? A. Apply for a replacement within 30 days if you still wish to carry. B. Immediately report the loss or theft to the issuing law enforcement agency. C. Carry a copy of your application as proof while you wait for a new one. D. No action is required unless you are stopped by law enforcement. Answer: B. Immediately report the loss or theft to the issuing law enforcement agency. Explanation: if your California CCW permit is lost or stolen, it is crucial to immediately report the incident to the law enforcement agency that issued your permit. This protects you if the permit is found and misused and allows the agency to issue you a replacement. Failing to report a lost or stolen permit could lead to complications if you are stopped or need to prove you are a valid permit holder. Question 17. According to California law, can you carry a concealed handgun into a federal building, such as a United States post office? A. Yes, as long as you have a valid California CCW permit. B. Yes, federal law permits carry if the state allows it. C. No, federal law generally prohibits firearms in federal facilities, regardless of a state permit. D. Only if you are mailing the firearm. Answer: C. No, federal law generally prohibits firearms in federal facilities, regardless of a state permit. Explanation: federal law prohibits the possession of firearms in most federal buildings and facilities, including post offices, regardless of whether you hold a state-issued concealed carry permit. Federal law supersedes state law in these specific locations. Therefore, even with a California CCW, you cannot legally carry a firearm into a federal building. Question 18. What is the legal term for unlawfully displaying a firearm in a rude, angry, or threatening manner? A. Concealed carry. B. Open carry. C. Brandishing. D. Holstering. Answer: C. Brandishing. Explanation: brandishing is the term used to describe the illegal act of displaying a firearm in an angry, rude, or threatening way, even if you do not point it directly at someone. This action can provoke fear and is a criminal offense, distinct from lawful concealed or open carry. A CCW permit does not give you permission to brandish your firearm. Question 19. Can a California CCW permit holder carry a loaded handgun in a public place? A. No, handguns must always be unloaded in public places. B. Yes, a CCW permit authorizes carrying the listed handguns loaded and concealed. C. Yes, but only if the handgun is stored in a locked container. D. Only if they are actively engaged in target practice at a range. Answer: B. Yes, a CCW permit authorizes carrying the listed handguns loaded and concealed. Explanation: one of the primary benefits of having a California concealed carry weapon permit is that it authorizes the permit holder to carry their listed handguns loaded and concealed in public places where carry is not otherwise prohibited. Without a CCW, carrying a loaded firearm in public is generally illegal. This ability to carry loaded is central to using a firearm for self-defense. Question 20. What is the primary restriction on carrying a concealed firearm in a restaurant in California if you have a CCW permit? A. You cannot carry in the dining area. B. You cannot carry if the restaurant serves food. C. You cannot carry in the area primarily devoted to the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, the bar area. D. There are no restrictions in restaurants with a CCW permit. Answer. C. You cannot carry in the area primarily devoted to the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, the bar area. Explanation. While you can generally carry a concealed firearm in the dining area of a California restaurant with a CCW permit, you are prohibited from carrying in the specific area primarily devoted to the sale and consumption of alcohol, commonly known as the bar area. This distinction is important for permit holders dining out. Always be mindful of your location within an establishment that serves alcohol. Question 21. Which of the following is considered a sensitive place where carrying a firearm is generally prohibited, even with a CCW permit? A. A retail shopping mall. B. A public park. C. A government building used for public assembly, like a courthouse. D. A private office building. Answer. C. A government building used for public assembly, like a courthouse. Explanation. Certain locations are designated as sensitive places due to their function or the vulnerable populations they serve, making them generally prohibited for carrying firearms. Government buildings used for public assembly or official functions, such as courthouses, fall under this category to ensure safety and order in judicial and governmental processes. Knowing sensitive places is vital for legal carry. Question 22. If a California CCW permit holder is involved in a justifiable use of force incident, including deadly force, what must they typically do immediately afterward? A. Leave the scene to consult with an attorney. B. Secure the firearm and render aid if safe to do so, then cooperate with responding law enforcement. C. Reload the firearm and prepare for further threats. D. Provide a detailed written statement to responding officers before leaving. Answer. B. Secure the firearm and render aid if safe to do so, then cooperate with responding law enforcement. Explanation. Following a use of force incident, especially one involving a firearm, the permit holder's immediate actions are critical and should prioritize safety and cooperation with authorities. After ensuring the threat is stopped and securing the firearm, the permit holder should, if safe and necessary, render aid to anyone injured and then remain at the scene to cooperate fully with arriving law enforcement officers. Providing immediate aid, if possible, and cooperating with law enforcement are crucial steps. Question 23. What is the main consequence of carrying a concealed firearm in California without a valid CCW permit? A. A minor infraction and a warning. B. A misdemeanor offense only. C. A felony or misdemeanor offense, depending on prior convictions and circumstances. D. Confiscation of the firearm but no criminal charges. Answer. C. A felony or misdemeanor offense, depending on prior convictions and circumstances. Explanation. Carrying a concealed firearm in California without a valid concealed carry weapon permit is a serious offense that can be charged as either a misdemeanor or a felony. The specific charge and potential penalties depend on various factors, including whether the individual has prior criminal convictions, particularly for firearm-related offenses. This underscores the importance of obtaining a valid permit before carrying concealed. Question 24. How does the requirement to carry a handgun unloaded during transport without a CCW permit change once a person obtains a valid CCW permit? A. It doesn't change. All handguns must be transported unloaded in a vehicle. B. The handgun can be transported loaded, provided it is kept in a locked container. C. the permit holder is generally authorized to carry the handgun loaded on their person while in a vehicle. D. The handgun must still be transported unloaded but no longer requires a locked container. Answer: C. The permit holder is generally authorized to carry the handgun loaded on their person while in a vehicle. Explanation: a key benefit of obtaining a California CCW permit is that it allows the permit holder to carry their listed handguns loaded and concealed, including while in a vehicle. Without a permit, strict unloaded transport rules apply, but the permit removes that specific restriction, authorizing loaded carry on the person. This allows for immediate access to the firearm for self-defense if needed while traveling. Question 25. Can a California CCW permit holder carry a concealed firearm onto the grounds of a public university or college? A. Yes, universities are not specifically listed as prohibited areas under state law. B. Yes, but only if the permit holder is a student or employee there. C. No, carrying firearms on college or university grounds is generally prohibited in California. D. Only if the firearm is unloaded. Answer: C. No, carrying firearms on college or university grounds is generally prohibited in California. Explanation: California law generally prohibits carrying firearms onto the grounds of a public or private university or college campus, with specific exceptions typically limited to law enforcement or security personnel. Even with a valid CCW permit, these locations are designated as off-limits for concealed carry for the general public. Always confirm the specific rules for any campus you might need to visit.